I'm so fortunate today to be at the home of Jamie Wilding, who's an amazing composer. He composes for orchestras all over the world, and this upcoming Saturday evening, he's going to be composing for the Escher Quartet as part of the renowned Tuesday Musical Association. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that composition as well as some upcoming things that he has. He uses nature to inspire him, and we're here in front of this beautiful, picturesque lake that is part of his backyard, basically. And I want to talk about how nature has inspired him since he was a small child growing up in South Africa.
Well, that's quite right. And this piece that I wrote for the Escher Quartet, this was a great genesis over some time. It took me maybe most of the year so far to write it. I did finish it already a couple of months ago because I had to, because they have to practice it. It's only Saturday that they're going to play it, and I hope they enjoy doing that. But as you say, I am inspired by nature and by things literary, by maybe taking a walk in the woods, or looking at the nature behind me. You can see the colors, and I love those colors, and that often inspires different orchestral colors, different sort of sounds. The string quartet was very beautiful to write for. I also write a lot for piano, which is my own instrument, a different kind of color, and I love writing for wind instruments.
And when you take a walk, say, with your dog or with your husband, with your wife, who is also a performing artist, what happens then? Do you hear the music as you walk, or do you actually hear the nature and then it inspires you later? I mean, a lot of composers actually hear music in their head from morning, noon till night,
yes,
right?
It's more in my head. I don't know about the nature. Sometimes, at the moment, I can hear cicadas, and that's a very interesting sound, and that's something that one can be inspired by. But ultimately, I think when it comes to my own music, that's something that I hear in my head that's just a little bit separate from what might be going on around me. If there's an aeroplane flying past or something like that, that's not necessarily going to be part of it. Once a piece starts to generate itself, it tends to have its own way of playing out in my head and when I'm improvising.
And then tell me, when you were a child, who were the composers that inspired you the most?
Probably Debussy, who's another one who loved nature. And I got into
Reflections on the
exactly
water.
Reflections on the water. I got into a piece called The Afternoon of a Faun when I was a teenager, and I just listened to that over and over again and thought, well, that must be the best thing that's ever hit the earth. And probably he inspired me the most as a composer. But I was also inspired by a game that I used to play with my brother. We used to sit at the piano and hit the piano in all sorts of funny ways, with not knowing what we were doing. But I guess we were improvising. Although my mother used to say, please be quiet. It probably sounded terrible. That was probably the best way to get going with investigating how sounds can be produced.
And about the emotions that they can produce as well.
Oh yes. Well, that comes sort of naturally. One doesn't have to think about that. There's an instinctive side.
And if you're going to play something that's solemn, does that put you in a solemn mood then? I mean, does it actually take you out of whatever?
So. Yes, probably. Although that's not necessarily the case that if I write a solemn piece, it's because I'm feeling solemn. I might just feel like writing a solemn piece, because I do think that we can tap into different emotions at different times, and as a creative person, I find I can tap into those different emotions even if I'm not actually feeling them at that moment. But that's very important.
Tell me your kind of emotional state when you were creating this piece, and tell us again the name of the piece.
The name of the piece is Homeland Portraits, and I was thinking back to the home of my youth, which was South Africa, and thinking mostly more globally about how we all think about our homes. Everyone has a home of their youth. We all have a home that we live in present day, and we like to think back to those homes with certain memories. There's a certain beauty in thinking about those things.
And I think one of the things about music is it unites people. It brings people together more than, diversifies them. And you're right. I mean, music in general is something that we can all kind of relate to on an emotional basis.
That's exactly what I wanted to do with this piece, to appeal to something that everybody feels, and to appeal to ideas that we all have, and that creativity that we all have. I hope that's...
And so tell us how you felt when you created this particular piece, and how you hope that your audience can relate to that.
I felt very much as somebody who wanted to reach out. That's what I was feeling at the time. I didn't necessarily feel somber or cheerful or anything like that, but I felt like I wanted to
felt
embrace all of
magnanimous.
those. Yes, I did feel magnanimous, that's true. Yes, I did try to reach as
And
much
artists
as I
and
could.
musicians, I think, are some of the most magnanimous people on earth. They're always giving of themselves. So I'm so excited to hear this, and the debut again is going to be this Saturday evening with the Escher String Quartet at Tuesday Musical Association. That'll be at E.J. Thomas Performing Arts.